collaboration, advocacy, and community engagement. I want to welcome you to the Live Well Breakout session entitled RLA, Residents Driving Results. Some things to look for in our 1-hour presentation and community conversation are the following. I'll share with you a background on the RLA and its evolution over the last 7 years. Number 2, you'll actually hear from each of our esteemed panelists, and they'll talk about how residents are driving results in 4 different San Diego communities as an immediate offshoot of implementing the RLA. Number 3, we'll try to make it a little bit more interactive and make sure that we take some questions from our audience. And number 4, we'll end by sharing with you some information about upcoming events, how to access vital information about the RLA. We'll also talk to you about how to sign up for future events related to the RLA if you like what you've heard today. So just as background, in 2011, my colleague and I co-founded a program called the Resident Leadership Academy in partnership with San Diego County HHSA. The RLA is a curriculum-based public health leadership program that teaches residents from underserved, underrepresented areas how to become a health advocate for a lifetime, especially as it relates to addressing issues of public safety, healthy food access, and the quality of physical activity opportunities in the community. The RLA was created in just 9 months and successfully pilot tested by me and my colleague in 4 distinctively different neighborhoods in San Diego County. They were Eastside, Oceanside, Southeastern San Diego, Lemon Grove, and National City. And again, this happened back in 2011. So after the grant program ended, we went through the highs, the mediums, and the lows of fighting for program sustainability because we just knew in our heart of hearts that this program was truly a unique innovation that deserved to be implemented over and over again across San Diego County. So in staying focused on achieving our goal, we continually promoted our work, showcased all of what we had accomplished in a very short amount of time, every chance we got. And we in fact landed 3 additional contracts to implement the RLA in neighborhoods inside and outside of San Diego County. We were successful in implementing the RLA at the 3 additional sites. Then finally, in the summer of 2013, we were approached by a small but mighty division of San Diego County HHSA called CAP, Community Action Partnership. Their staff told me and my colleague that they loved the program and that it was in alignment with their departmental goals. Goals like community capacity building, civic engagement, leadership development, family self-sufficiency, anti-poverty. They also shared with us that the county no longer considered the RLA to be a pilot program anymore, but rather considered it to be a proven, evidence-based strategy. But they also told us that we couldn't be the only ones facilitating the program in San Diego County, so they challenged us to take this unique model of community engagement and public health to scale throughout the county by developing the RLA Train-to-Trainer Workshop Series, which consists of 4 non-consecutive days, 8 hours a day, and by the end of the 4th day, Community Action Partnership's expectation would be that the participant graduates would be 150% game ready in effective dissemination of the model. So I blinked, and literally 5 years later, me and my colleague at CHIP had certified 6 total cohorts in the RLA Train-to-Trainer Workshop Series right here in San Diego, which translates to 86 total individuals, informal leaders, community-based organization representatives, and effective dissemination of the Resident Leadership Academy model in their respective communities. And that's not it either. There's more good news. Since the RLA was first pilot tested in 2011, the program has been replicated 50 plus times in the county. And San Diego now has 650 plus RLA graduates in this town. And these graduates serve as the driving forces behind a multitude of far-reaching and impactful community change projects in underserved communities. We're truly blessed indeed. So by a show of hands, how many of you in the crowd are actually Resident Leadership Academy graduates, either the train-to-trainer or as an academy graduate? By a show of hands. Again, we're truly blessed indeed, and we're growing into quite a critical mass of public health affiliates, and so I appreciate you all being here today. Hello. So I'll be a little bit serious now. I shared with you earlier about the highs, the mediums, and the lows about this journey because I just want to keep it real with you. Just about how fragile community engagement programs are in today's world of public health. And this story, I feel, connects well with the overall conference theme today, connecting and unconnected to live well. So I asked myself, why are people unconnected? Why are people disconnected? You see, based on my humble experience, community engagement programs are often overlooked, undervalued, even an afterthought most of the time. And you know what? That's okay, because no matter what the political or social climate is, or whether or not the resident leadership or a similar program has support, I believe people will always value training community members. And I'll take it a step further. I think people will always value programs that finally teach people how to fish. I'll let you sit with that for me. But the good news is that the County of San Diego has an agency director, along with many on his executive team that get it, and understand that one of the greatest investments that the County of San Diego could ever make is in building the leadership and advocacy skills of the people that reside in our low-income, underrepresented, underserved communities. And it is this understanding, this belief, this bold support, which has allowed the RLA program to grow into what it has become today. A progressive movement that builds long-term, sustainable public health leadership in underserved communities. And this is my segue to the panel. Each of our four esteemed panelists are individually accomplished in their own right. I call them superstars. And if I were to be honest, I say, I'm just grateful and honored to have had the opportunity to influence and be a part of their advocacy journey in public health. You know what they say about the RLA is that it puts the fire in a person's belly. But the reality is that these folks right here, they're mentors to me. In essence, they taught me that the RLA is just a beginning. A new beginning, actually, because they've each taken the program to new heights that I never believed would be possible by virtue of their own accomplishments. And for this reason, I'm very indebted to each and every one of you for accepting and participating with me on this panel. So our first panelist is Mohammed Salame. Mohammed came to the U.S. as a refugee in 2009. In 2015, after identifying a huge need in his community, he started his own nonprofit called Newcomer Support and Development, or NSD. Newcomer Support and Development empowers refugees through workforce development, leadership training, cultural integration activities. NSD adopted the Resident Leadership Academy program as a core civic engagement practice because it effectively empowers refugee community members to advocate for themselves, voice their concerns, and confidently engage with local policymakers and elected officials. Mohammed has implemented 3 RLAs in the Iraqi community of El Cajon. Our next panelist is Kim Heinley. Kim Heinley is Programs Manager at Bayside Community Center, located in London Vista. Bayside has conducted the Resident Leadership Academy 7 times in multiple languages, English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, graduating 89 students to date. Bayside supports local leaders in the implementation of community gardens, pedestrian safety campaigns, and the launching of small businesses. Third, we have Jennifer Mendoza. Elected in 2014, Councilmember Mendoza is a proud graduate of the Resident Leadership Academy and continues active involvement with the Lemon Grove Healthy Eating Active Living Zone, or HEAL Zone. Ms. Mendoza has witnessed firsthand how growing numbers of RLA graduates have acquired city leadership positions while others remain to be the driving forces behind several community change projects that increase public safety, healthy food access, and recreation opportunities in Lemon Grove. Last but not least, we have Rachel Penuelas Moreno. Rachel is Community Engagement Director at South Bay Community Services. She oversees the Chula Vista Promise Neighborhoods program, established in 2012, which focuses on the Castle Park neighborhood in Western Chula Vista. So get this. Without county funding, Promise Neighborhood staff decidedly adopted the RLA model of community engagement to increase parent and senior engagement in their effort. Since 2015, Promise Neighborhoods has implemented 4 generations of RLA, totaling 54 graduates. Congratulations, ladies. be over here. What I'm going to do is just ask you a question. Mohammed. Mohammed. So I'm just going to ask you a series of questions, each individually, and after you go through it individually, then I'll have questions for the whole panel. Okay? Again, thank you for being with me. Okay, so Mohammed, can you reflect a little bit on what it feels like to be a refugee in San Diego and what the RLA has done to make refugees in Oklahoma feel more connected and a part of the community?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Salame from East County, Oklahoma. Being a refugee in Oklahoma, San Diego in general, probably one of the best places to start, at least in San Diego, because most people are familiar with the immigrants and refugees, so compared to other states or other cities, it's really welcoming. But my experience as a refugee when I came in, especially a refugee with a bachelor degree, I saw that what is available is one size fits all. So there is no differentiation between someone who speaks English with a skill, high skill, or someone with no skill. The first question that I start asking fellow Americans is, what refugee means to you? And the first thing, which is a stereotype, people are coming from refugee camps. So that is what we had to fight when we came to the United States, especially as Middle Eastern community, which is more, a little bit sophisticated, doctors, engineers, teachers. So besides that I have to prove myself, I have to fight the stereotype. So that is my start in the United States.
So tell me your experience with the RLA. You've had 3 total in Iraqi community of Oklahoma. So tell us how going through the RLA experience made some of the refugees feel more connected to their community.
So what happened when I came in 2009, I started to connect with community members, especially the Alcohol Collaborative, and they start knowing that I trying to prove myself, trying to fight the stereotypes. So instead of refugees and immigrants, we started using the word newcomers. It's more pleasant for a lot of decision makers. Immigrants are undocumented. Refugees are coming from refugee camps. So if you keep using those words, it's not pleasant for them. We can't move forward. So we use the word newcomers. And this is how we started. One of the first people, one of the first mentors, which is Lavona Connolly, which is at the corner, far right corner, she's the Alcohol Collaborative. She told me about the RLA. My idea was how can we use the skills of the newcomers and apply it in our local community so we can tell the mainstream community this is what we can contribute. We're not here only for benefits, as the stereotype saying. So she said there's an RLA training that will teach you how to advocate for a community, teach you how to communicate with your local government, learn more. And that was my second year in America, so barely knowing what's going on. Joining the RLA, we had a tagging issue with the graffiti issue, and they always solve it by repainting the utility boxes where the graffiti is. What I did, I brought highly skilled refugee newcomers, artists, who came in and they said, there's an easier solution that you can put something called sealant. Whenever the paint is tagged, you just clean it as new. We don't really have to repaint. That's something that never happened here. So we did it in El Cajon, and since 2013, so far, the painting is the same. Every time they tag it, we just go and clean it. The original paint is not changed, so that is something that we started in El Cajon. And the idea, the implementation is from highly skilled newcomers. So that was my dream that came true. And after this, I started asking everyone, can we have a refugee-specific RLA? I don't know, whenever I talk to Dana, please, refugee RLA. And the CAB team, every time I say hello to them, it's like, can you please fund refugee RLA? That was since 2013 until last year came true, and we actually did 3 refugee RLAs. One for teenagers, one for youth, and one for adults.
So I don't know if people know yet, but Mohammed decided to use his own funds to create a documentary film called The Refugee RLA. Some of you may have seen it. And so my question is specifically about that. You use your own funds to create this video documentary. What did you hope to achieve as a result of creating the video? Just tell us a little bit.
Actually, the work that we did on the RLA, it's not the RLA, we went beyond even the timeline of the RLA. We're bringing refugee teenagers who have been here 6 months to 1 year, teach them how to fill application of the city, like city applications. You teach them how to talk to a city manager and go to the city council and speak. That was something I was learning through the process how to do this. But having those kids doing it was really good. So I have a friend who's an asylum seeker. He's a filmmaker. He's highly skilled. Now he got a contract in Hollywood. But when he came here, he was just asylum seeker. Whenever he said, I'm a movie director, they said, oh yeah, no, they don't believe it. So he was documenting our effort, and at the end when we did the work, he said, okay, let's have a short movie about the RLA success, because that might be the only chance that we can do something. I would just want to change the picture of the newcomers. They can do something if they get the chance. All the newcomers, not talking about refugees only, every newcomer, they get the right chance that is coming from their own culture, with someone from their own community. They can do something. So we used our money. The movie maker actually estimated the movie for like $3,000 of work that he donated to the movie. We rented some equipment, but I believe we don't regret it. It's something that we're proud of as a Middle Eastern community and newcomers community, that we did it by ourselves. I hope that you can watch the movie. You'll know what I was talking about.
My next questions are for Kim Hyman in the Bayside Community Center. Kim, you guys had 7 RLAs. Why is it so important for Bayside to offer the RLA to residents in Linda Vista and some surrounding areas?
Well, thank you very much, Dana. Again, Kim Hyman, Bayside Community Center. And I think it's important to start with who is Linda Vista? What is Linda Vista? It is an incredibly diverse community located just north of the 8, where there's over 25 distinct dialects within a 3 to 4 mile radius. It's also one of the most socioeconomically underserved communities in San Diego, but most people don't know that. It's one of the 6th most distressed, actually. Most people don't know that. It's surrounded by these large institutions from the YMCA, the USD, Mesa College, Radies, but in the center of that community within the center of that perimeter is the community of Linda Vista. And that's where Bayside is located, right? So it's a very underserved community. And Bayside's mission is to empower that diverse community to improve quality of life. And so the Resident Leadership Academy is an excellent tool and an avenue through which to do so, because it creates really the multiplier effect. Bayside's a small staff. We have less than 10 people on our staff. Yet if our mission is to empower a 34,000 person community, that's impossible if you don't bring the community into that conversation. So by having residents go through the RLA training and then working with them on the tail end of that to actually do the projects, we really consider it the multiplier effect, right? We've trained almost 90 individuals through the RLA. And they then take on that responsibility and carry that torch. And that's 10 times the amount of staff we have to be able to do that type of work and to empower the community. So it's an effective and a very functional way to empower the diverse community through a training that is as we see, widely used throughout the county and has a great effect. And it also finds and values the voice of the community, of the people in the neighborhood who otherwise, whether it's because of language barriers or access to resources, or even just knowing that there's not only a community center, but there's multiple community centers in Linda Vista, it brings those folks into the conversation for how they can get involved in making the change. So it finds value in the voice of the residents in Linda Vista.
I learn something new every day. The resident Resident Leaders in Action is Bayside Community Center's extended workforce.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Tell us a little bit about the results that they're driving.
Where do you even begin? Our Resident Leadership Academies now have gone through 7 cohorts, and when they graduated the first 2 cohorts, they created what they decided to call themselves the Leaders in Action, so taking that work and putting it into action. And this ranges from tangible projects like getting park lighting in Kelly Park, which is a very unsafe park in Linda Vista that has gang violence and illicit drug use. We even just had a police walk on it last week where residents were going, we just found a joint, my 2-year-old daughter just found a joint in the park. How can I bring my kids to this park when they're picking this up and thinking it's a toy and want to smoke it? Literally, this just happened last week. So one of the big projects that our residents have been working on has been getting more lighting in Kelly Park. And that's not a small undertaking. That requires getting quantitative data to take to the city and say there's danger here, there's illicit drug use here. That requires putting together a budget to go before city council and say, here's how much it would cost to put in lighting. That requires advocacy and residents showing up. And if you look starting in 2013 when the Leaders in Action started to do that, right now lighting is being built in Kelly Park because last year Mayor Faulkner approved the budget line and now it's being implemented. So that's one of our bigger projects that the Leaders in Action have taken on. And so the lighting's not there yet, but it's coming. Other projects that the Leaders in Action have taken on have been things like getting community gardens not only started, but also selling at the farmer's market. Getting crosswalks and traffic safety mechanisms installed, intersection murals, getting, oh my gosh, I can keep going, community cleanups. There's once a month now we have one of our resident leaders in action. She has coordinated these community cleanups. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're 2-3 people, sometimes they're 15-20 people, but every month, on the first Sunday of the month, she's out here leading that group of people who decide to show up. So it ranges from what seems like a smaller effort, like a community cleanup, which isn't, to larger projects like installation of park lighting that's going to affect thousands of people in Linda Vista.
Thank you. So as I was saying, the Resident Leadership Academy is just the beginning. And groups like Bayside Community Center are the ones that kind of take it a step further. So I just wanted Kim to talk about how Resident Leadership Academy has also catalyzed different opportunities for continuing education and also the opening of small businesses for the residents that she's working with in Linda Vista. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, most definitely. So this is something we're super proud of at Bayside is we recognize that 10 weeks, you don't learn everything in 10 weeks, right? So that's when we always say the work then begins, that level of engagement, continuing the community involved. So when our residents graduate from the Leadership Academy, we then, as a community center, work with the residents to find additional educational opportunities. So that can be anything from auditing classes at local universities like USD or Mesa College, working with them to get into those classes so they can continue that education. We've worked with some of our RLA graduates to get them into the RISE Fellowship, continuing that education of what does it mean to be a leader. And also, additionally, Action, the small business academy that Action offers. So this is one of our major highlights is we had a group of, it was a Vietnamese speaking cohort that went through a couple years ago through our RLA training. When they graduated, some of the students said they wanted to open up a boba tea shop in Linda Vista and carry the heritage of their family from Vietnam and establish that tradition in Linda Vista. And they're youth. I mean, these are students who right now are in Mesa College studying. And we went with them to Action and we worked with them and literally sat with them in class for the 10-week Action Small Business Academy and took the course with them. So then they have somebody there who they feel comfortable with and can bounce ideas off of. We're not just throwing them in the deep end and saying swim. We're saying, no, we're here with you. We're here for you. And now these students have launched their small business called Boss Boba. And now they're looking for a place in Linda Vista to actually establish shop, but they do catering events. They just last week catered for the Harvest Moon Festival in Linda Vista. And so that's a good example of residents who want to find out how to be self-sufficient, and we work with them to help them make that happen. Another example would be we have an incredible program, Baile Folklorico, at Linda Vista, at Bayside Community Center. They've been around for 10 years now, hosted at Bayside, but they go up and down to Encinitas, down South Bay. They're a great program. one of the founder and director of Ballet Folklorico, she's an RLA graduate and now a leader in action. And she continues to take all of these educational opportunities that she can because she knows it's benefiting her business, her small business, Ballet Folklorico. So now she's the one that's going into these small business trainings, Nonprofit Academy. She just did a 2-day training 2 months ago where she goes and she learns how do I manage my books? How do I write grants for my business? So it's not just a hobby anymore, it's her livelihood. And that's something that we then work with her on the back end at Bayside to provide the resources with grant writing or with marketing support or with helping her with the accounting side so that she can eventually take it all on her own. But in the meantime, Bayside helps provide that backbone and that structure for her to succeed. So those are a couple examples, a few more, but I would say those are probably some of our highlights.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Councilmember Mendoza. Okay, you and several other RLA grads through the Lemon Grove Healthy Eating Active Living Zone, now 43 total in Lemon Grove, have been appointed in recent years to leadership positions within city and the school district. How does that feel? And share with us some of the successes that the RLA grads are driving, including yourself.
So I'm going to tell you a story that I don't think I've ever told you before. But in 2011, I was serving on the Lemon Grove Planning Commission along with my friend Raquel Vasquez. And Raquel's picture is just above mine to the left on the screen there. And so Raquel told me, oh, there's this new resident leadership program coming into Lemon Grove. We should do it. And I said, well, we're already leaders. Do we really need a leadership program? Maybe it's for people who are new leaders. And she said, well, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I said, all right, you do that and let me know how it goes. So she did the leadership, the RLA, and the next year she ran for city council and she won. And that was in 2012. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll give this leadership academy thing a try. And so I did. And what I found was, yes, I was already a leader in my community, but I felt that the RLA really honed my leadership qualities and also brought me into contact with people that I wouldn't have otherwise probably have met and learned things about my community that I thought I knew because I've lived there for a really long time, but I learned more from them through this experience. Now, we've had 4 RLAs? Yes, 4. And so as time went on, Raquel is now our mayor, by the way. She and I brought back the Planning Commission in Lemon Grove. We didn't have a lot of community involvement, and I think one thing the RLA taught us is we needed more community members involved in Lemon Grove. So we brought back the Planning Commission, and we established a group called the Community Advisory Council. And by and large, a lot of the applicants were RLA graduates. And because we had been through this training, we knew that these folks were trained to be good leaders. And several RLA graduates are now on our city's planning commission and serving on our community advisory council. So, and I think that our other council members recognize that our leadership qualities are also reflective of their leadership qualities. So the RLA has a good reputation in Lemon Grove, I would say.
Councilmember, I'm going to come back to you and we'll move on to Rachel. Did you just hear that? She brought back the Planning Commission. That's amazing. Not alone. Closed the Planning Commission, saved some resources, reopened it so that the public process would be validated. Amazing work. So Rachel,
Hi.
how's it going? This is an interesting example. Chula Vista Promise Neighborhoods is a project mainly focused on academic success of students in the Castle Park neighborhood, Chula Vista. Yet, you and your colleagues identified the Resident Leadership Academy as something that they wanted to spend their own resources on. So that's incredibly unique to me. And since 2015, you have 4 generations of the RLA, and I'm just saying, what was your thinking leading up to that bold decision, 9 county funds, to invest in the RLA 4 times in recent years, so many graduates? And then how did you convince your funder to do so?
Well, for us, in our community, we had been there, started working there in 2012, just building momentum in our community. And with that, we saw it just was a natural graduating kind of process for our community. They were ready. They wanted something more. They wanted more than just volunteering and being part of our schools. In each of our schools, we had expanded our volunteerism by 800%. Our parents were expanding on each of the parent site meetings, becoming PTA members, sitting and attending some of our city meetings. But we really wanted to get them more involved in the policy planning and advocacy. Lucky for us, we were able to extend our Promise Neighborhood grant for 2 more years, but that wasn't always the plan. We had no intention of being around forever in that neighborhood, although most of us all lived there. But it was really about creating the true community capacity building for all of our families, to make sure that all of our students not only were just graduating from high school and getting to college, but also empowering our parents to make changes in the schools. The schools, when we first entered, were all suffering. They had low academic scores, low attendance issues, very low population, and we increased all of that in our neighborhood. And because of the parents and their involvement, they really took it to like the next level and building our sustainability, and that was part of our policy. So for our funders, it was an easy sell. We just, we really just showed them the results. We showed them the numbers, the data, talks in our neighborhood by expanding the number of events, the number of activities, the number of volunteerism, and really talking about the stories behind that curve. Because when you talk about community engagement, it's hard to measure. It's hard to measure the effects of our parents and how it's affected each family and each student walking in our neighborhood, the safety in those neighborhoods. And so what we really, our parents, just when they kept asking for more, we needed to give them more. We needed to show them, that this was true and dear to our heart. And we wanted to make sure that our communities continued to thrive. So when we went to our funders, we showed them how more kids were eating fruits and vegetables. We showed them how obesity was decreasing in our neighborhood, how more children were walking to school instead of being dropped off, I talked earlier about the increase of engagement and parent participation in all of our schools. And so, again, it was really just about proving that we're building stronger, healthier neighborhoods.
Tell us a little bit more about the results driven by the residents. In particular, I want you to tell everybody here about Good Neighbor Day Children and how that's connecting the unconnected to live well.
So our resident leaders, they've been doing just like everyone here was talking about, running our gardens, running our walking groups, facilitating our nutrition classes in the neighborhood, our food distribution sites, just coordinating services. Promotoras, as a community engagement director, I had promotoras in the community, and they were telling me, this work is really hard. We have a lot of work to do. And I said, well, you have a lot of leaders out there. Let's build off their capacity and have them help support you. With that, we started seeing the same resident leaders, the same community leaders out there. And as we built resident leadership around the capacity, our resident leaders had a concern now. Now they were doing all the work out there, and they needed help. And they said, in our neighborhood, we don't talk to our neighbors. We don't know who lives on the right and left side of us anymore. We go to school, we come home, we lock ourselves in our house, and our kids don't know the neighbors. We don't know the neighbors. And so they wanted, as part of our wellness, Live Well Wellness and Children and Healthier Communities, they wanted to beat isolation. They thought that, in our community we have
high rate of depression and isolation, and we have security issues around immigration in our neighborhood. And so our resident leaders said, we need to meet. We need to go out and meet people, and we need to get them more engaged in resident leadership. And so the first year, they created what we call, first was just Promise Neighborhood Neighbor Day. And what they did was they go out and they create for about a week or 2 weeks, they create flowers, and they come and they meet their neighbor. They invite, first of all, they invite everybody to a neighborhood block party. And we also include our local authorities, so our police department, fire department come out and make a pancake breakfast. And it's turned into a friendly competition now between the fire department, police department, and who makes the best pancakes. And so that's one of the highlights. But as visitors come, they're also encouraged to make flowers. Our resident leaders go out there and they meet their neighbors, and they hand 2 flowers out to their neighbor. One is to introduce themselves. The other is so that they can introduce themselves to someone else. Our second year, we expanded that into creating random acts of kindness on that day also. So our residents in the community created promise cards and promised to do something nice on that day, as well as give out the flower. Our Chula Vista mayor is now very engaged and very involved in those efforts, as well as our chief of police and fire chief. And so now this year, it's proclaimed to be an annual event for the city of Chula Vista.
Thank you, Rachel. So many of you are probably out there thinking, wow, this is just a rainbow pathway to all of the good things that they're just describing to us. The reality, people, is that this work is very, very hard. So let me spice it up a little bit by asking our illustrious panel members, tell us about the challenges. Tell us about the challenges of maintaining a resident leadership group. Tell us about the challenges about letting people find out things on their own out in the community as a result of graduating from this curriculum-based process. And I'd like Rachel to start, but then I'd like all the rest of our panelists to also speak to the challenges as well.
I think one of the greatest challenges when you take on a project and a commitment to our community for resident leadership is making a true commitment. Like you were talking about, the 10 weeks, it just isn't enough. I mean, you think you're going to be able to go through a 10-week curriculum with your community. The first day they look at you like you're crazy. They look at you like, you expect me to do what? How am I going to go and meet the mayor and the city council and go up there and talk in front of everyone? And so it's a lot of building for us. We expanded it to 16 weeks and implemented a lot more of the policy and advocacy planning around it and teaching. But I think the greatest piece is meeting on a regular basis. We continue to meet, each of our cohorts continue to meet on a regular basis every Friday. The new ones go on their own, and once they graduated, they come back around and meet with the entire group. And so that, power is in groups, and we keep them all together, and they meet. They've created a really nice community. The other, I think, challenge is also protecting their integrity and their strength and their power, because now that the city and our officials, we want to make sure that our leaders are protected. We want to make sure that they understand what city council meeting is, or what that elected official is, or what that leader, what even our fire department and police department, when they're trying to pass propositions, really understanding so that they can make the educated decisions out in their community. And lastly, our resident leaders, by making a commitment to work with them, it's like managing rock stars. They are pulled in every direction. You're called up, they're called up, they're wanted everywhere because of their valuable information, because they have so much to share. Everybody talks about having community on the table, and I think in Chula Vista and in County of San Diego, we truly have resident leadership voice. And so I think that one's the biggest piece.
Anybody else?
I think the biggest challenge we're being faced with in Lemon Grove is also sustainability. We don't want this program or our leaders to just become trained and then go away and be discouraged and not do anything with it. So that is a challenge we're facing and one that we're hoping to resolve. And we are working on our sustainability.
Absolutely, sustainability is a huge challenge. I'll speak to it a little bit more from the projects themselves, the CIPs, the community improvement projects, because if you get me behind closed doors, I'll gladly share even more. But up front here, I'll just share that the biggest challenges we have with projects are the funding and the bureaucracy to get something implemented. Because there are these great ideas that come forward, and as an organization that's just facilitated the RLA, and that our mission is then to work with residents to implement these projects. So we're committed to them. We're committed to the residents. We're not going to fail them. And yet sometimes these projects or these ideas that come forward are bigger than you might think at the beginning. And so a project that, yeah, let's get more lighting. 4 years later, almost 5 years later, it's just now being implemented. That's a challenge because of how long it takes to actually work through the process. Or placemaking activities. This is something that I think San Diego, especially the city of San Diego, is going through growing pains right now with placemaking, right? And a new policy was just enacted. But we're already implementing placemaking activities in San Diego, and yet we're going through this process as this policy is being not only developed, but now implemented and passed and approved. And so there's challenges. There's challenges working with what does the city say? What does the county say? How much is this permit? Do you even have that in your budget? Was your grant funding for the RLA going to cover, a traffic control mechanism to paint a crosswalk? Is that now the organization's job to find that funding? Is it the resident's job? So there's elements like this that when you bite off a new project, because that's what the residents want to see, that sometimes you might just be jumping in thinking, we're going to figure this out, and you do. You've committed. You're in it. And so now you're working with the residents, and frankly, sometimes with your elected officials and your representatives in the city and county to figure it out too. But that can be a big challenge with the funding and the bureaucracy of how long these projects can take, and sometimes how much more you might not realize you need to raise to actually implement and sustain something. You could build something, but who's going to be back there in a year from now to take care of that garden plot that just was put in when that resident moves, or when that staff member is at a new job, right? So how do you create that mechanism of sustainability?
Mohammed. Tell us about some of the challenges you faced.
So some of the challenges that I said earlier, stereotypes about newcomers. So when I go and say we have a leadership for refugees, and this is where most people, they say, what do you want? Donations? What are you looking for? Food or party? Because this is what our cultures are. The previous communities introduced our culture, just like food and dance. So this is one of the things that I needed to work on. Second thing, we didn't have a meeting place. So what we did, we actually rented a storage and painted. And if you want to watch the video later, you will see a lot of people asking, we like how you decorate your office with pipes. No, those are real water pipes going through the wall. So, but we made it. Yeah, and we're talking about 12 to 13 athletes, teenager soccer players. Put them in one space, no air conditioning. Yeah, but we made it. Some other challenges that when we start to make some successes, other bigger agencies started to claim our success. Because we were working locally with our community, other big agencies started going and talking, this is what we did with the soccer team, this is what we did. I was like, no, we did it. And this is part of why the movie maker, we wanted to have a video for the Iraqi community soccer team, to promote them. But part of it was what we're doing. But after we hear this, he said, no, they're claiming all the things that we have done. So we changed the movie to show what we have done. And we actually, us who did it. Refugees helped refugees, not other agencies teaching us what to do. No, we can do it. And I hope that you can see the movie. And this is one of the last challenges that we found that others are starting to claim. And bring it back that refugees and newcomers cannot do anything by their own. And that's wrong. We proved it.
Thank you. So of course, I have a number of questions dialed up, but I want some questions from the audience, so I'm going to follow my instincts real quick. We have our good people from Community Action Partnership that'll take questions. Mark? Hey man, what's going on?
Hey, thank you for hosting this, Dana, and thank you to the panelists. My question might be a little loaded, but hopefully you can answer because I'm really curious. In order to overcome burnout, because this work is so hard, what sort of support or self-care do you provide to the participants as well as after they graduate? And is there any form of compensation you provide, honorariums, stipends? Because sometimes, these residents are pulled in very different ways. Once you become a leader, different organizations want them involved in your campaigns and everything. So if you can just try to answer that, that would be great. Or we can talk afterwards. Thank you.
So burnout, I think for us, our resident leaders, they're basically an extension of our organization. So as you can see, there's 28 of them here today at this conference, and it's because we're truly providing development for them. We want them to go through crisis management, conflict resolution. We want them to continue to grow and develop in their skills. They also meet on a regular, I have a facilitator that's paid staff to provide training for them every Friday. They get together, even if it's just events, but the staff is truly integrated into South Bay Community Services wraparound services, and so whatever the need may be, it's extended to them as well. I think to your second part of the question, as far as funding, there's been times where I've tried to pay them, even trying to give free turkeys and things like that also when we can. And I can truly say that they're leaders because they're born to be leaders. And we've taken them into other neighborhoods to do surveying. When we can pay them and stipend them and provide them with gift cards and so forth, many of them have been hired through South Bay Community Services as well. And one of them is actually an intern that will be going to Washington, D.C. with me at the end of the month to present at a national level on how progression, leads in our community for our leaders. So it's about building them as leaders and to move on. And if we lose them to opportunities like employment, that's what we want.
Okay, I can answer your question. So back in 2011, we basically would have these meet and greet events about the RLA. Some of them happened in City Heights too. And just in 1 hour's time, I told them everything that they needed to commit themselves to for 14 weeks. And I tried to scare the hell out of them. And the ones that signed up, they were the ones that were real. And then at the very end of the process, they thought they were just going to get a bunch of knowledge and to be tighter in terms of co-work with their neighbors. And then at the end, I was like, here you go. And so they were blessed by $200, $300 payment. In terms of burnout, though, me myself as a leader with these good folks here, if you've seen the Resident Leadership Academy, those sessions are loaded, man. So you feel the energy in the room, and when people are getting overwhelmed, you have to think about adjusting the timeline and then say, okay, let's take a break, let's have a team dinner, let's decompress a little bit, how's everything going? And yes, you just extended your life at the Resident Leadership Academy by about 2 weeks, but you also reduced the burnout. And so I think it's important for any leadership of an academy to just follow their instincts and try to keep people fresh. More than anything, though, the academy is meant to be a leadership pipeline. So we don't want anybody to get burnt out. And so we're constantly putting fresh legs into the game. So we have 1, 2, 3 running backs. So all running backs right there that are willing to make sure that nobody gets hurt and that everybody's still running the ball. So that's kind of how we feel about the stipends and the burnout. And the last thing I said, back in 2011, believe it or not, man, we were smart enough to put aside $1,000 for each group just to say, hey, this is your money for advancing your community improvement project. Best decision ever made. Any questions from the group right here, sir?
Who are the faculty of the academy, and do they cross over from one area to the other?
Yes, sir. So we, back in 2013, my colleague, she's on maternity leave until January. So we co-facilitate a train-the-trainer workshop series. It takes 4 days, 9 consecutive days, and basically by the end of the 4th day, people that go through as participant graduates, they're able to disseminate it themselves. What we like to encourage community-based organizations or informal leaders of the community to do is at least come 2 at a time and finish it together, so that when you teach the academy in any of the respective San Diego communities, that you can do so as a team, because it's a lot of one person. So the faculty is myself, Dana Richardson, and then my colleague is Yemi Palomino. And then so essentially through the train-to-train workshop series, what that means is that those people become the faculty that teaches. But in many instances, it's still a lot on a lot of the folks that we train through our training program. So what they like to do is embellish the actual curriculum-based training by inviting in certain guests who also become over time their partners. So you'll see the mayor comes out, or Jennifer as a councilwoman comes out, and they speak to different issues into their expertise, land use, community planning, healthy food systems. You'll have different guests that come in that are also teed up to also help with the implementation of the community improvement projects that they prioritize, of which by the end of the process, 10 to 14 weeks, there'll be at least 3 to 5 priority projects. Questions? Yes.
My question is for Mr. Mohammed. Question for Mr. Mohammed. Where is your refugee RLA video? Where can we get it on YouTube, or where can what's it called?
Question is, where can the refugee RLA video be found? Where can you find it?
So you can find it on the LiveWell website, the Well San Diego, or you can find it at the website, our website, which is newcomersd.org.
Newcomer. Right. Any other questions? Yes, Ken.
Yeah, I was really impressed by all your stories, and thank you for sharing. And I think it's really impressive what's happened in Lemon Grove in terms of people coming up and becoming elected officials. And I know in my community and in Carroll Beach, we have certain neighborhoods that are very much underrepresented in our community civic life and as elected officials. And I was just wondering if there are other communities other than Lemon Grove where we've seen those kind of results, and if you have any advice also from Lemon Grove in terms of kind of using an RLA. We're building community leaders, but we also want people to move beyond and become maybe elected officials, heads of programs, that, any ideas that you have.
I forgot to mention that this election cycle, there are also RLA graduates running for school board in Lemon Grove. And this is the first time that some school board members have been challenged for like 20 years. So usually in Lemon Grove, once you're on the school board, you're on the school board forever. But I'm very excited that some new folks are moving forward to run. I think in our communities, and I attribute a lot of this to RLA. My attitude is I encourage people to run for office. Being in office it's just community service, and I'm going to serve my community for a while, and then I'm going to step back because it's very hard work, and it can be very discouraging at times. And so I'm always encouraging other people in my community to step forward and run for office, particularly RLA graduates.
For us, we also encourage sitting on our boards and commissions. Being in Chula Vista, we are predominantly our neighborhoods are Spanish speaking. And to be honest, there just wasn't a place in our school board meetings, in our city council, and those kind of things. And so resident leaders have really raised that issue. You know, if you notice, there's translation this year here at the conference. So our resident leaders are now asking for this and asking for seats. And so we have several of them that are starting off on our boards and commissions attending, but also on wellness committees. They're part of the Live Well leadership team. And so we're integrating them as well. And it's always our dream is to get somebody as our city council or our mayor in that neighborhood. So one of them there, we're looking to them. But that's our goal. I mean, about resident leaders, it's about getting them to that step. And each community, I think, is different in where they're starting.
Before Ken, from here to Los Angeles, everybody's wondering, what is the secret sauce in Living Grove? But I'll be honest with you, because I just heard it. I was just at a meeting in downtown LA, and they were talking about, you know, how do you get folks to want to run for office? They're really putting themselves out there and doing so. But the RLA also talks about something called invisible power. So to be honest with you, right now, we have tons of people that have gone through this particular program that are on DLAC and ELAC, and I'm telling you, these are the most fearless women and men that I've ever seen that are representing, you know, these causes that are at the core of the RLA, around healthy food access and public safety, pedestrian safety, etc. So I just wanted to plug that in. We don't have necessarily, council members in every place, but they're in some really powerful places of influence.
Yeah, and that's an excellent question, and I think our experience in Linda Vista has been pretty different than this because we had one RLA graduate who was out of our first cohort back in 2013. The following year, she was elected to the Linda Vista Planning Group. And the following year, she dropped off because she didn't feel welcome on the group. She didn't feel like she had a voice on the group. And it wasn't a good fit. And it really made us as an organization step back and say, maybe we need to do more with our residents before they jump into something like that. Just because you go through this 10-week course doesn't mean you're all of a sudden ready to maybe assume that position. I sit on our Linda Vista Planning Group, and I'm overwhelmed 90% of the meetings, and it requires a ton of work outside of it. And this was a single mother with a child whose second language was English. I mean, and all of these barriers and obstacles in her way, and then just not feeling like she had a place on the group. So we supported her when she said, you know, this isn't for me, and I can find my voice in this community in other ways. And that's when we really stepped back and said, okay, maybe we need to continue this education beyond the 10 weeks. And maybe it needs to be a little bit more on the intrinsic side of the individual and that leadership and that growth and development, and making sure that they're prepared in many ways to be able to take that next step. So while we certainly have had many graduates gone through the course now, probably were ready at that time, it could be now, to step onto a board like that and to have that voice in that place. We also learned the hard way that she might have just got thrown into the lion's den before she was ready and before the community was ready to open their arms to somebody who didn't look or talk like that, right? And that's hard, and that's still a constant battle, especially in diverse, underserved neighborhoods, and we're all up here feeling that same thing, and everybody in those neighborhoods are too, and so that's something we're continuing to fight upstream with. So we encourage folks to find their voice in different ways, like the other types of leadership positions, or maybe not even elected official positions, but PTA, right? How can you be exposure? Yeah, exactly. Exposure in different forms or different groups. One of our leaders now leads a women's savings group at Bayside, and it's not an elected position, and it's not a civic body, but it's a great way to engage the community in very different ways outside of that elected position.
So I want to acknowledge the time, but we're just 2 minutes over. But people, this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are some wonderful examples. Thank you. Thank you for your participation and for representing here today. Before I get into announcements, I want you to consider going to the hub and visiting the booth that says Resident Leadership Academy Successes. Got a couple of announcements back there. Abdi, could you wait? Yeah, so we have a number of different flyers. One of the announcements, okay, October 24th, Wednesday, San Diego County Office of Education, 1:30 to 3:30. That's when our bi-monthly Resident Leadership Academy Council meets. You're welcome to come. We're an open book. You'll hear all of what's happening in the county. Secondly, then we have a Resident Leadership Academy supplemental training number 8. It's an all-day training, Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., San Diego County Office of Education. It's with the National Conflict Resolution Center. It's called The Exchange. The training is based on mediation theory and explores a 4-stage process of resolving conflicts. And then, of course, what I really wanted to talk to you about was our Train-the-Trainer workshop series, which also the flyer is there. And it's starting on Valentine's Day for next year. We'll have our first of 4 non-consecutive days for the Resident Leadership Academy Train-the-Trainer. And that usually caps off at a maximum of 25 people. So if you like what you heard today, I ask that you go back and sign your name up. I'll have you added to the list. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate these beautiful people here today. Please talk to us. Thank you for your time. Have a blessed day.